Uh, Hi Yusuf. In this tutorial, I'm going to explain you the concept of assistance class. So assistance class basically is going to constitute the model part of your MVC architecture. Before I explain any of this, I'll just go ahead and do a simple application now. Then after that, I will just do the same thing using assistance class. So you will understand what is the difference that we are doing over here. So I'll just go ahead and, and create a WebDynPro component, say zwdc underscore simple form. So I'm just going to create a simple application. So this application we have created already, which is reading the user input and displaying the output. So I'm just creating a simple form here, or let's say we will just create a simple report, w underscore main and b underscore main. So let's say I'm just going to create some sales order. So for that, I'm just going to create the select options as well. So I'm just creating a component usage for select wdr underscore select underscore option is the component for select options. I have created a component usage for the same. To use the same thing inside my application, I'm just going to create a controller usage for this select option component. So I just go to this thing. In the properties window, I create a controller usage. 1 second. Okay, now here in this component I have created the controller usage for the select option. So now what we usually do is we create a view container UI element, then with the help of select option component we will create the selection screen in the select option component. Then we will just invoke that selection screen and we will just show it to the user through our view container UI element, which is basically like a view container UI element here is borrowing the layout from some other component and then it is displaying through it. It's just like a window. So I'm just creating a view container element and I say this view container element is for select options. So I give it as vc underscore so and I create a view container UI element. Now going to the window, here you will be able to find the view container UI element which I have created inside the view, and inside this I'm going to call the select option view in which the select option would be created and I'm going to display it over here. So to do that I'm just calling this component. So you can see that the component usage which I have created is select and the component is wdr underscore select option and wnd selection screen is the one using which I am embedding the selection screen. Now technically what happens is whenever I'm going to create a select option that is going to get created in this win selection screen of select option component. I'm just borrowing that screen and I'm displaying it through the view container element of main view. So the view container it borrows this screen. This screen is embedded, view container is embedded in the main and the main is embedded in the view. So that is basically how your application gets displayed. So this is something like this. So say for example in the select option component a view has been created. You have your own view. Inside that you have this view container element. This view container element, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to call this view which has the select option and I'm going to make it display inside this. So that is basically what it is doing internally. Now going back to the component, I will just go ahead and I will create a selection screen quickly. So for sales order I believe it's vbln underscore vl, so let's just go and check it once. Okay, slash OS11. What happened to this transaction? Let me just open up a new session here. S11 VBAK F7. Okay, now VBLN underscore VA, it's the data element for this particular thing. Now this is the one which I have to use in order to create the select option for this VBLN me. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and create a select option over here. So I'm just going to do it in my view controller method, in doing it method, so that before my application gets executed, you will be able to see this. So just one thing before doing the coding part. Okay, so I just increased the font. So here, first thing what we are going to do is we are going to create the select option component. So remember the four-step process. First thing, you have to check whether the select option component is active or not. Second thing, you have to get the interface controller reference, and through the interface controller reference you have to get the reference of the select option. Then the third step, you need to create a range table for the select option, and the fourth step, you need to create a selection screen field. So I'm just going to go ahead and create this four-step process. So I'm just going to use this code wizard. So first thing what I'm doing is I'm just going to instantiate my used component, which is select. So this basically will generate the code which will check whether the component is active or not. If it is not active, it will create it. Then the second step is the used component. Then the second step is get the reference of select options. So for that I need to call the method in the select option. So I'm once again using the code wizard. In this I'm going to use this method call in used controller. When I say method call in current controller, it is going to refer to my current component, whereas when I say method call in used controller, which means the component which I have used. So this will list out the different used components. So one used component here is component controller, because component controller also accessible from the view, and the other one is this WDR underscore select option component. So in the WDR underscore select option component, I'm calling this method called init selection screen, which will give me the reference of the selection screen. So basically I know that this method would give me the reference of the selection screen. I have called it. So in case if you are struck up somewhere, if you are going to use some component, then you just have to go to the component controller of that particular component, and in that you will need to check this interface method whichever is capable of being called, and you need to check what parameter that interface controller is returning. Okay, now here I have got the reference of the select options component, which will have the methods for creating the creating this range table, as well as for creating the selection field. So I'm just going to create the selection range table. I will first create the range table. Then for creating the range table, from this select option, I'm just going to call a method called create range table, as I already have the reference to this. So a map object patterns. In this I will call this method create range table lv underscore r underscore helper underscore class is the reference. Oops, I have just entered it in the wrong place, so I just paste it here. So now I have to pass the type name, that is vbln underscore va is the type. I don't want to pass these two parameters, so I just ignore that. And this one I'll just go ahead and create it now. So data rt underscore vbln type range type ref to data. So because it's a data reference variable,
Then finally I will go ahead and create the select option field. So add the select option field. So for that I am calling this add selection field method. F4, we have this method add selection field, using which I am going to create the select option. So I wanted it to have my own ID, so I will just give it as VBE LN, and I wanted it to have its own description. Let's say sales orders and no auto description, and the result of this has to be stored in this rt underscore range table. That is the purpose why we have created this range table, and this one has to be mandatory. I am not I will have to manually check whether it is mandatory or not. System will not does that automatically. Then okay, so that's it with the select option. I'm just activating the component. Okay, what is the error? rt underscore range table is unknown. Sorry, it's rt underscore vbln is what we have declared. Okay, now I have to activate the entire component. So the select option part is now complete. So I'm just creating this application. Let's say ZWDA underscore. Control C, and I will execute this application. Okay, so our select option component has been created, and I haven't actually set this global option, which I will go ahead and I will set it now. I don't want any of this button to be available on my screen. Everything is by default true. I will just set them to false. Okay, so anyway this option will take the effect. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a button control now, and based upon this, when I click on this button control, I'm going to read the select options and I'm going to display them in a ALV report. So let's say btn underscore display. I am creating a button control, just giving the text as display. Okay, now whenever I'm going to click on this display button, I'm going to display the report result in the ALV report, whatever the selection value that I have populated. So for creating the ALV report, I'm just going to create a ALV component, SALV underscore WD underscore table. Now for ALV report, we need to create the context node in the component controller. So only then you will be able to map it with the interface node of the ALV component, otherwise you won't be able to map it. So VBAK, the structure is going to be VBAK and the cardinality is going to be 0SGN. Adding the attributes from structure, say ER dat, ER name, VB type, network, WK, ORG, VK, ORG. So fine, we just added some fields. Then as soon as you add this, you just remove this, because first it will consider the dictionary reference, only then it will consider the reference of the structure. So if the dictionary structure is available, then it is going to construct all the components for you, which we do not wanted to happen. Now I will just go to this ALV report. So for the to use the component, first we need to create the controller usage. So I just create the controller usage for the ALV component. Then going to the layout. So the same approach applicable here as well. I'm just creating this VCE for ALV component. Just like select option, we are going to borrow the screen and we are going to display it over here. So I will just go ahead and borrow the screen now. Now in SALV component, it would be created in some component, some view called table. So that is that view which we have to embed. So I have embedded that view. Then finally we have to go ahead and specify this ALV component. So if you see the difference for ALV component, you will see some arrow mark indication. For select component, you will not be able to see that, because select option, it basically does not expect any information from you from the context node, but ALV expect, which is why you have that option difference. So if you see this interface controller, because these nodes are created as an interface nodes there. So if you wanted the top of the list or if you wanted end of the list, you have to pause this. For data, you have to create this. Now from the component controller, I'm going to pass the data to the data node of ALV. Now the ALV component at runtime, it will take the information from the data node, and whatever the information that I have passed here, it will be um, it will just create the ALV report for the same. Now I will just populate some value for this component in the component container itself. Sorry, we actually have to pass the value based on the selection criteria. So let's just see how the component has came up. I'll just activate it. Sorry, why is the structure is not removed? So this is basically how our component has came up. So few fields I have selected. Now whatever the selection field that I'm going to choose here, based upon this, I'm just going to have my selection to be displayed over here. Now typically what we do, we write our logic in the display method of the component controller, right? Sorry, display method. In the event handler method for the display, we will write the logic, which is actually not to be done. So the main concept about MVC architecture is you have this model component separately, and you are supposed to have the view component separately, and it has to be communicated with the controller. So model, view, and controller. Now the key thing is that inside the model, it should only contain the data generation logic, and inside the view, it should only contain the view generation logic. The core principle behind this is that now in the view, I may have n number of user interface element using which I can represent the values on the screen. Now say for example, today it's basically for separating the display logic from that of this data fetching logic. So when you have these two components loosely coupled, it will help you building out a flexible application. Now say for example, in the view, if I'm going to display today with table, then here I would have been written the logic to display it with the table. In the model, I would be using this function module to generate the data, and I would pass this data from the function module to here using the controller assistance. So now what happens is, now the data generation logic, data display logic is separate and the data generation logic is separate. Now in future, if my customer come up with requirement and he says that if I do not want to display it on table, instead I wanted to display it on ALV report because of additional features that the ALV report has. So now you need not have to be depending upon the backend. So whatever the data that it gives, let it be the same data, you can just use it and you will be able to replace the table with that of data ALV report. So that is one of the key advantage. When the component, these two components are loosely coupled, you do not have to be depending upon each other. You can just mm, replace whatever you wanted. Now say for example, here it is going to be displayed on ALV report. Now here I am generating the data through the function module. Now later on SAP has introduced a BAPI which I am supposed to use. Then I can just go ahead and replace the function module with that of BAPI. So this is not going to affect the front end, because front end logic is always going to be like whatever the data you give, I display. Back end logic is like I don't care however you display, I just give you the data. So that's basically how it is going to react, right? Now whatever we have done is correct. We have created our component, and from the component we have created our view, and inside the view we have created our layout. Now inside this layout we have our button control. Now when I click on this button control, the event handler method for this button control, it is also getting executed inside the view part itself. Now inside this view part, we not only read the information that are entered by the user, but we also write our data fetching logic over here, which means that you are just ignoring this part and you are just proceeding with this particular thing. Okay, so that is one thing. One key reason is you are violating the MVC architecture in doing so. So here you are not supposed to write any select statement over here, or you are not supposed to do any data generation logic at all. So from the view, you are only supposed to create your display logic and nothing other than that. If you wanted any data, you have to call the model and you have to get the data from the model. So this is one key point. Okay, so now, okay, fine, boss. However, if I'm not going to display this, I'm just only losing the option of flexibility, which is fine with me, and I will still go ahead. So if you think it in that way, then again, it's a mistake. The reason is the WebDyn Pro app, it runs in something called as a container, WebDyn Pro container. So what happens is whenever you execute your WebDyn Pro component, it will just gets loaded into something called WebDyn Pro container. Sorry, it will just get loaded into the WebDyn Pro container. Let's say the size of this WebDyn Pro container is 4 MB. For an assumption, nobody knows the size for sure. So let's say the container memory is 4 MB. Now what happens is your WebDyn Pro application, entire application, it has to run on this particular component. So it occupies some memory, let's say 3 MB. The one drawback here is, now if you are going to write a select option over here and your sorry select statement over here to read from the database table, and your select statement, it is going to have like say for example 30,000 records. Then what happens is, now in the container your WebDyn Pro component occupies 3 MB out of 4 MB which is available, and only 1 MB space is available, which means that the 33,000 records which are generating using the model, sorry, generating that is coming from the database using your select statement, now you do not have the size to fit entirely inside this. So what you need to do, you have to transfer it bit by bit. So the system will transfer like, okay, transfer 1 MB data up to 1 MB. So process the data, then transfer the next 1 MB of data, then transfer the next 1 MB of data. So this is going to reduce the performance of your application. So only within the cache memory that is going to be available, you will be able to load the application data and you will be able to process it, right? So this is one of the drawback. Whereas whenever you're going to execute this in a separate model, say for example in a class, now class, it runs in something called heap memory. Now the size of this heap memory, it's multiple time larger than that of the WebDyn Pro container memory. So what happens here, when you write a select statement, you will we will be having a flexible space in which you will be able to load a large amount of data and you will be able to process it. So that is the reason why you are going for assistance class as your WebDyn Pro model. So a model, it's basically no component is called as a model. Wherever you are generating your data, it is going to be called as your model. Now basically what happens, why you use assistance classes, the class it runs on something called heap memory, and it has space several times larger than that of your WebDentro container. So if you are going to write a select statement over here, now here say for example the data has to be transferred 1 MB by 1 MB. Now here it can be transferred as 20 MB by 20 MB if the space is available. So I'm just saying for an example, none of these measurements are accurate. Okay, so but I hope you got what I was trying to explain. So now I will go ahead and create the assistance class. Now on I will be writing the data generation logic only from my assistance class. So to create the assistance class, go to your WebDentro component. Here you will be able to see an option called assistance class. So here you need to implement the name of the class. Say for example assist underscore simple underscore form. So basically what happens is whenever you are going to give a name over here and whenever you are going to click on enter, it is going to create a class with this name. Now the class it is going to create is just an ordinary class which you create using SE24. The only difference is that whenever the class is going to be created, it is going to implement you an interface which is going to act as a bridge between your WebDentro component and your class. So it forms the bridge. That particular interface it forms the bridge between these two entities. So let's say it doesn't have yeah create. Now what happens is whenever you have created an assistance class, a system parameter just like your WD this and WD comp underscore controller system parameter, one more parameter would be generated in your WebDentro component called as WD underscore assist. So the reference of this assistance class will be stored inside this WD assist parameter. So let me just activate the component and show it to you. So if you go to this attribute section, you will find one more attribute called WD underscore assist in your component controller as a global variable, which will have the reference of your assistance class. Now, whatever the methods or attributes, whichever you are going to have inside your assistance class, they are readily accessible using this assist parameter. You don't have to create the instance of the class. So this basically would be like an singleton. That is like for one WebDentro component, it's going to be always one assistance class. So now if you want from that assistance class, you can just inherit further and then you can add your own logic over there. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into the view and I'm going to implement this display button logic. So whenever I click on this display button, what I need to do, I need to read the select option. So to read the select option, so we will go ahead with the same 4-step approach, uh, or what I will do is I'll just try to call the method on again and again. So I'll just store this reference as a global. Sorry. Okay. So whenever I'm going to get the reference of this select option for the first time, I'm going to so WD underscore this will be referring here to the view controller. Inside that we have this LO underscore select variable inside which I'm going to set the reference of this. So I'm just storing the reference of the select option in a global variable which can be accessed within different methods in the view. So now here to I'll just use the reference of the select option which I have stored, using which I will get the range table values. So non-action display. So I'm going to call this method LO underscore select is the field, WD underscore this get range table of selection field. So what is the ID that I have created there for the select option field? I think VBLN. So I'll pass the ID and I will get the range table. So RT underscore VBLN. So data rt underscore vbln type ref to data. Then since it is a reference data reference variable, you won't be able to access those values. So I will just create a field symbol fs underscore vbln type any. I'll just get the reference of this rt underscore vbln into this. So I'm basically doing a dereferencing here. Assign rt underscore vbln dereferencing operator to fs underscore vbln. Now the select option which I have created would be there in this fs underscore vbln. Since I have created this as generic, whatever the type it is returning, it will be reacting to this particular type. Now based upon this, I need to do the selection and I have to display it. Now let's say I will just write a display logic first, which is to set the node for ALV component. So before that I will do the mapping from the component controller to the view so that I can write my logic over here. So set as table operation, I'm going to set some values over here. So what we need to do is, based upon this selection criteria, we need to retrieve the value and we have to bind it over here. So in the normal example, what I would do is I will just write select star from VBAK into table LT underscore VBAK where VBLN in fs underscore VBLN. So that's basically how I would write it. But this is actually violating your architecture. You are writing your data generation logic inside your display logic and also writing the select statement within your WebDentro component. It's going to reduce your performance significantly. So you should never use even a single select statement inside your WebDentro component. So how do I do that then? So I will go to this web assistance class which I have created, where I will create a method, say read so as a instance method. So I already have the reference of this class as a wd underscore assist, so I will be able to call this method with that particular instance. Read the sales order information. Right now, so I'll just look for a table type because I'm just going to pass the select option over here as an whatever the select option that has been entered by the user. So I'm just going to look for a table type for VBLN star. I'm just going to look for a table type, appropriate table type. Hmm. So we have something here in the structure of the select option. So this would suit our requirement. So I'm just going to create an importing parameter as a table, and that importing parameter would accept the table information in the form of a select. So im underscore select is going to be importing parameter which is of type this, which means it is accepting as a range table. So from the select option I will get a range table. That range table I'm going to pass it over here, and based upon that I'm going to export the values. Then I'm just going to look for a table type for VBAK table. It should be there ideally. Okay, so there is a table type for VBAK as well. so which I will be used to return the VBAK information. What I would be doing here is I would be exporting all the information from here, and there in the front end I would be segregating the fields which I wanted. So this is an exporting parameter and this is going to do this. Now this method is going to take one importing parameter as, let's open the signature. It's going to take one importing parameter select option and it is going to return the table XO. So let's say if im underscore select is, okay, let it be, anyway it's select option, right? So select star from VBAK into table ex underscore VBAK where VBLN in im underscore select. So I have created a separate method here. Now from here I would be calling that read SO method. So for that, what I will do is, I know that name of the class is CL underscore assist underscore simple form. Go to the pattern. Now the reference for the select option is provided in a variable called WD underscore assist. So the name of the class would be ZCL underscore assist underscore simple underscore form, in which I'm calling the read SO method. Here I'm going to pass the select option whatever I have retrieved from the screen, and based upon that I'm going to take the value as importing. So data lt underscore vbak underscore temp type table of vbak, because that is the structure our class is referring, ls underscore vbak underscore temp type vbak, right? Fine. So now here I will get it as lt underscore vbak underscore temp, then loop at lt underscore vbak underscore temp into ls underscore vbak underscore temp, move corresponding ls underscore vbak temp to ls underscore vbak, append ls underscore vbak to lt underscore vbak. So fine, we are getting it in the final structure. So for this I have to create one more reference variable which is ls underscore vbak, which is going to be of type element underscore vbak. Okay, that's basically going to be the structure for the internal table which we have created. Just activate this. I'll put a breakpoint here. Let's say we will consider some range values between 49692 to 4996, 49692, 49692, say 5000. And when I click on display, it should trigger my event handler method where I have placed a breakpoint. So what we are doing, we are with the help of the select option, reference to the select option, I'm getting the range table back. So in the range table you can see the information on. So basically in the range table the value is stored as a data reference, so it is stored in some other location, the value is getting stored. So that one I am bringing it to my select option using this data reference dereferencing operator. So now you can see that my select option will be having that value. Now after getting the reference of the context node, instead of writing the select option directly, I have implemented my logic in the assistance class. Now when I say F5, it will go inside the assistance class, it will read the information and it will store it inside this table. It has retrieved 31 records, and those 31 records are going to be moved here and it is going to be displayed in VBAK table. So in the VBAK table you will get this 31 records. So you execute, you will be able to see the information displayed over here. So that is basically a thing about the assistance class. It's just you're going to write your logic inside the assistance class instead of writing it here on the screen. Okay, so when I have free time, I will just try to create more videos and I will share it with you. Thank you.